Why is it worth watching and reviewing Schindler's List? So if a few dry facts about the movie, Schindler's List is about the German businessman and NSDAP member Oskar Schindler, who saved over 1,000 Polish Jews from death during the Holocaust. It is important to note that the film in general is based on the novel Schindler's Ark by the Australian writer Thomas Keneally. But the film succeeded more. In particular, it received more recognition among audiences and critics, and brought in more profits. Remember that any film is first and foremost a commercial product. With a budget of $22 million, Schindler's List made $322 million. Can you imagine? $300 million more than its budget? Personally, I'm convinced it's well-deserved, given the ideas it carries with it. Steven Spielberg made the film. This movie is personal to him because he himself has Jewish roots and wanted to show the horrors of the Holocaust. In general, while watching the film, I caught myself thinking that I have a very bad idea of Steven Spielberg. This movie is the cornerstone of his career. What do we get if we try to combine cool professional skills and directing abilities with something personal? We get a masterpiece, and Schindler's List is just such a movie. Film Awards, 1994, Academy Award. Best Picture, Steven Spielberg. Best Director, Steven Spielberg. Best Cinematography, Janusz Kaminski. Best Editing, Michael Kahn. Best Original Music, John Williams. Best Screenplay, Steven Zaillian, 1994. Golden Globe Award, Best Director, Steven Spielberg. Best Screenplay, Steven Zaillian, 1995. Grammy Award, Best Motion Picture Instrumental Composition, John Williams. The list is very impressive and, most importantly, well-deserved. But why is this movie worth seeing or reviewing? First of all, there's at least one trivial reason. It's an acclaimed classic that has been on the list of the best movies of all time for years. What's the problem then? It's a good thing, isn't it? Not really, unfortunately. As with any good film, with any other classic, this film is universally recognized, but only a minority return to such films, revisit them. Given its important ideological component, it is necessary to revisit this film from time to time to refresh your memory not only of its form, but also of its content. Another reason to see or review Schindler's List is that it is at least technically unusual and brilliant in its own way. The film begins with a frame of color, then changes to a black and white narrative, and only in the final minutes returns to the usual modern color scheme. Here it is worth noting a very interesting and symbolic detail. The film begins with a candle going out, and the frame is in color, which signifies the fading of hope during the Holocaust. However, by the end of the film, the candle is lit, the color returns, and hope is revived. The scenes with the little girl in red are particularly noteworthy. In one scene, when German soldiers occupy a ghetto, the protagonist, Oskar Schindler, watches the black and white mass of people being led out to be sent on to the camps. Here, a brilliant camera work is important. In the black and white mass, we are shown the only girl in red, which makes it clear that the main character's attention is focused only on her. And she is the only one the main character will see again in this film in red-colored clothes, but unfortunately not alive anymore. And it is her, by the way, who is depicted on the film's poster. The work of the cameraman and the play with light deserves special praise. The film, shot in black and white, paradoxically allowed the cameraman to do an ingenious and titanic job, and to construct every scene of this film technically flawless. Take, for example, one of the scenes at the end of the film when Oskar Schindler's workers were mistakenly sent to Auschwitz, and he comes to the German officer's office to ask for help. The light in this scene is set so that the German officer's face is in darkness, but when he makes a good decision, the light begins to fall on him. And there are a lot of such details in this movie. If you can learn to pay attention to the subtleties of camera work and light work in movies, you will admire every frame of this movie. A separate plus in this film is the acting. Liam Neeson, playing Oskar Schindler, played with gusto, as did all the other characters, including the negative ones. He was even, by the way, nominated for an Oscar, but he never won. I think that's an objective decision. Almost all of the actors in the film managed to show their emotions, primarily through their eyes and gaze in general. This allows for close-ups to feel all the horror and literally animal fear of people at the end of their lives. I will objectively point out another plus point: the script. Steven Zaillian won an Oscar and a Golden Globe for Best Screenplay for this film with good reason. There is such a subtle dramaturgy built up here that the film completely immerses the viewer in this complicated story. All of the storylines, main and derivative, come to their logical conclusion, allowing not only the characters, but also the viewer to close the gestalts. What stands out, for example, is the storyline with Oskar Schindler's wife. At the beginning of the movie, he refuses to marry her, and by the end of the movie, he returns to her. By this point, the viewer forgets about the line, and when he remembers it, he is pleasantly surprised by the plot and scenario development of Oskar Schindler. All in all, I highly recommend watching reviewing this movie.